The Rosary is the weapon. These 4 words came from a man who knew spiritual warfare like few others in history. Padre Pio of Pietrelcina, the Capuchin friar who bore the wounds of Christ in his own flesh for 50 years, who battled demons physically throughout his life, who could read souls and bilocate, who performed countless documented miracles. When he said the Rosary was the weapon, he wasn't speaking metaphorically. He had seen what it does. He had watched demons flee at the sound of Hail Marys. He had witnessed souls snatched from damnation through rosary beads clutched in trembling hands. He knew, because he saw things the rest of us cannot see. And what he saw about the Rosary changed everyone who heard him speak of it. Padre Pio's own rosary beads tell a story. When he died on September 23, 1968, they had to pry the rosary from his hands. His fingers were locked around the beads in rigor mortis. He had died as he had lived, praying. Those who knew him said he prayed at least 20 rosaries every single day. 20. That's over 1,000 Hail Marys daily, prayed with such intensity that his beads wore smooth, the metal crucifix rubbed thin from decades of his wounded fingers gripping it. But it wasn't the quantity that mattered most. It was what he saw happening when people prayed it. And what he saw was war. The demons hated the Rosary. Padre Pio saw this with absolute clarity. Throughout his life, he experienced physical attacks from evil spirits. These weren't metaphorical temptations. They were violent, documented assaults that left him bruised, bloodied, and his cell destroyed. His fellow friars heard the crashes and screams. They saw the aftermath. The demons would appear to him as terrifying beasts, sometimes as beautiful women trying to seduce him, sometimes as his religious superiors giving him false orders. But one weapon never failed: the Rosary. When Padre Pio began praying the Rosary during these attacks, the demons would shriek and flee. He saw them recoil as if burned when he invoked Mary's name. He watched them scatter when he pressed his rosary beads against his wounds, which bled continuously from the stigmata he received in 1918. He told his spiritual children repeatedly, "Give me a weapon. The weapon is the Rosary." When people came to him with problems, with temptations, with fears, with sins they couldn't break free from, his answer was always the same: pray the Rosary. But it wasn't just advice. It was strategy. He saw the spiritual battlefield clearly. He knew what worked. A woman once came to him possessed by a demon. The exorcism was brutal, lasting hours. Throughout the ordeal, Padre Pio held his Rosary, praying continuously. Those present testified that the demon screamed specifically about the Rosary, crying out that the prayers were burning it, torturing it, forcing it to leave. When the woman was finally freed, she collapsed in exhaustion. Padre Pio's only comment was, "The Rosary is the weapon. Never forget this." But Padre Pio didn't just see what the Rosary did to demons. He saw what it did for souls. People who prayed near him reported that he would sometimes stop mid-Rosary, his face transforming with either joy or anguish. When asked what he had seen, he would sometimes explain. He had seen a soul converted through someone's Rosary prayer. He had seen someone escape hell at the moment of death because a family member was praying the Rosary for them. He had seen Mary herself presenting prayers to Jesus, prayers that saved souls who deserved damnation but received mercy instead. The Rosary, he said, moved Mary's heart, and Mary's intercession was irresistible to her son. One documented account involves a man dying in a hospital who refused the sacraments. He had lived a life of public sin and mocked religion. Padre Pio, though miles away at the monastery, appeared at the man's bedside through bilocation. The man later testified that the friar held up a rosary and said, "Your mother is praying this for you. Will you die and break her heart?" The man, confronted with this impossible appearance and the mention of his mother's prayers, broke down and confessed his sins. He died shortly after, reconciled with God. His mother had indeed been praying the Rosary continuously for his conversion. Padre Pio had seen the power of those prayers from a distance and responded. Padre Pio's spiritual direction was simple but absolute. Pray the Rosary daily. Not when you feel like it. Not when it's convenient. Daily. He would ask his spiritual children, "Did you pray the Rosary today?" If they said no, he would refuse to hear their confession until they did. He wasn't being rigid. He understood what they didn't. Without the Rosary, they were fighting spiritual battles unarmed. With it, they became formidable. He told them that Mary had promised victory to those who pray the Rosary. He had seen these victories himself. Addictions broken, marriages saved, children converted, vocations discovered, all through the Rosary. When people asked him how to pray the Rosary properly, he said, "Pray it with your heart, not just your lips. Think about what you're saying. The mysteries aren't just stories. They're realities you're entering into." He meditated so deeply on the Passion while praying the sorrowful mysteries that people reported seeing tears streaming down his face, mixing with the blood that wept from his stigmata wounds. He entered into Christ's suffering through the Rosary. He united his pain with Christ's pain. And in doing so, he participated in redemption itself, offering his suffering for the conversion of sinners, just as he had seen was possible through prayer. The night before he died, Padre Pio prayed his final Rosary. His hands could barely move. The stigmata wounds, which had bled for 50 years, had mysteriously healed just days before. His body was shutting down, but his lips continued forming the prayers. "Hail Mary, full of grace." Those who were with him said he smiled as he prayed, as if seeing something beautiful. Perhaps he saw Mary waiting for him, ready to welcome home her faithful servant who had defended her and her son with that weapon she had given to the world, the Rosary. When he died just after midnight, his fingers were wrapped around those beads, worn smooth by decades of warfare, prayer, and love. Padre Pio saw what most people only believe in theory. He saw that spiritual warfare is real. He saw that demons are real, active, and powerful. He saw that sin gives them access to souls. He saw that most people are walking through this battlefield completely unaware of the danger. But he also saw the weapon that defeats them every time. The Rosary. Not because the beads themselves are magic, but because the Rosary is a declaration of dependence on Mary's intercession and a meditation on the life, death, and resurrection of Christ. Its humility made concrete. Its faith made active. Its love made repetitive until it becomes habit, until it becomes identity, until it becomes armor. When Padre Pio said, "The Rosary is the weapon," he meant it literally. He had used it against demons who left him bleeding. He had wielded it for souls who were dying in sin. He had watched it work, again and again, in ways that reason cannot explain but faith confirms. This wasn't superstition. This was testimony from a man who saw both the visible and invisible world simultaneously for half a century and fought hell daily. If Padre Pio, with all his gifts, all his holiness, all his direct experience of the supernatural, insisted on praying the Rosary 20 times a day, what does that tell us? It tells us we're in a war. It tells us we have a weapon. It tells us we'd better use it. The question isn't whether the Rosary is powerful. Padre Pio proved it is. The question is whether we'll believe him enough to pray it. Not occasionally, not when we remember, but daily as he did. With devotion as he taught. With confidence as he demonstrated. The demons know what it does. They flee from it. Mary knows what it does. She wields it for us. Christ knows what it does. He honors his mother's intercession. The only ones who don't seem to know are us, the ones who need it most. Padre Pio saw the battlefield clearly. He showed us the weapon. Now it's our choice whether to pick it up and fight, or remain defenseless in a war we didn't realize we were already in. This is revealed by saints. Subscribe to see what the saints saw, and share this message with someone who needs to understand the power of the weapon Padre Pio never put down.